When someone asked him, why did you take up bodybuilding in your 80s? He hired a Mr. Olympia and put on like 20 pounds of muscle naturally. And he said, well, there's some sexy 70-year-olds that I'm trying to turn their eye. And he said, vanity is actually one of the most important factors when it comes to longevity. Your muscles they inform the rest of your body as far as how healthy you are. And so your muscles release these peptides called myokines. They inform the brain and they inform the cardiovascular system as to whether or not your body's in a healthy place. There's peptides that we'll talk about where you can stack and cycle these, where if you use a growth hormone peptide like CJC-1295, Ipamorelin, Tesamorelin, Hexarelin, you're going to stimulate growth hormone, which activates mTOR, because now your body's in a building phase. If you're just doing growth hormone peptides and you're not exercising, or if you're just doing growth hormone or anabolics and you're not exercising, it's very dangerous. What I've done today is we've done a deep dive into some of the ways that you can build muscle. I just recorded 20 YouTube videos, and about half of them were around the best supplements and peptides, how to stack for muscle mass, how to induce more protein synthesis and recover faster. And so if you guys are not on my new YouTube channel, it's just Regan Archibald, Ageless Future, and there's some really good things on there. There's a couple videos on muscle building, but you'll see over the next couple of weeks where they'll be published. So let's talk about muscle mass. And when you think of muscle mass, also think muscle health, because it's one thing to have like big, strong muscles. That's helpful in some cases, but what's even better is when you have muscles that are flexible, and you know, we've all seen the people walking, you know, the dudes that are all stiff, and it doesn't end well in their joints, you know, and if you see them compete against other athletes who are flexible, there's just no comparison. Like, you want to have flexible muscles, you want to lengthen your muscles and strengthen them. You want the fast twitch muscle fibers and the slow twitch. Your muscles are actually, they inform the rest of your body as far as how healthy you are. And so your muscles release these peptides called myokines. And myokines are interesting because they inform the brain and they inform the cardiovascular system as to whether or not your body's in a healthy place. And one of the big risks that we have as we age is a condition called sarcopenia, where our muscle gets replaced with fat, the blood vessels get brittle, and it's a condition that prevents people from doing the activities they love later in life because their muscles started to break down. And as we age, one of the things that happens is the genes that regulate muscle building, they get turned off. Just seems like God doesn't care anymore, but actually he does, and or she or her, but you can actually reverse this, and that's what we'll talk about today. And so I'm going to share with you a picture of my back that Ann helped me with the slides. I was like, how did you get the picture of my muscles on here, Ann? But this is, you know, peptides for muscle growth. Do they actually help? And that's what we'll talk about today. So some of the things that the research shows is that if you can improve muscle building, there's 4 pathways that we're going to cover today. And these pathways all relate to each one of these actions, but the pathway is mTOR and AMPK. So for you science nerds out there, you want to take notes on this. So mTOR, AMPK, and many of us, we've heard of mTOR, the mammalian target of rapamycin. And rapamycin, you know, I've had clients use it for about a decade, and I learned very quickly that rapamycin was not going to be part of my longevity plan, because rapamycin is a drug that is actually used for patients who have organ transplants. So it's an immunosuppressive treatment, and it keeps the immune system from rejecting the organ. But when you take it at low doses, what they found is it does turn off mTOR. So mTOR is the pathway for growth and muscle building. And if you go back to the data on rapamycin, it was discovered in the Easter Islands in a place called Rapa Nui. And they found that these earthworms just had this prolonged lifespan. And it was in large part due to this antibiotic that was in the soil called rapamycin, which is what they, where it was uncovered. And then people have used it in small doses, maybe once a month or every other week. And there's been some interesting studies in rodents where they found that it does extend the life of rodents when you turn off or when you inhibit mTOR. But if you do it too much, if you have too much mTOR inhibition, like if you have a diet that's very low in protein, especially if it's lower than 50 grams, like 50 grams is like, that is the RDA, which is really weird, 50 grams of protein a day. That is just enough so that you can walk upright. I mean, it's just a very, very low quantity of protein and very dangerous to function in that low of range. And so mTOR is actually really important. And the other pathway is called AMPK. So when mTOR is inhibited, you'll see that AMPK gets activated, and AMPK is a secondary energy system. So there's peptides that we'll talk about where you can stack and cycle these, where if you use a growth hormone peptide like CJC 1295, Ipamorelin, Tesamorelin, Hexarelin, you're going to stimulate growth hormone, which activates mTOR because now your body's in a building phase. At the same time, though, you want to activate AMPK so that you have times of the day when you're mTOR dominant, when you're in a building phase, and then you want to tear things down. And that's how muscles aren't grown in the gym. Muscles are grown. They're torn down in the gym. And then it's when we sleep and when we recover and regenerate, that's when the muscles are built. And so this mTOR AMPK is really helpful. So mTOR, growth hormone releasing peptides, which we'll talk about some of those today. And then how do you activate AMPK? Well, that's where MOTS-c. MOTS-c is a really interesting peptide because it's going to affect the other two pathways that I'll introduce to you here in a minute. MOTS-c is an AMPK activator. It's phenotypically expressed in greater volumes after exercise. So in one of the studies, they took patients and they measured the levels of MOTS-c peptide in their blood before exercise. Excuse me. And then they put these participants on an exercise bike for 20 minutes and run at a moderate pace. And then they tested the MOTS-c peptides in their blood afterwards, and they had a 500% increase in MOTS-c. So the researchers concluded that exercise does cause the release of more MOTS-c. And remember, MOTS-c activates AMPK, and so it triggers autophagy. So if you're just doing growth hormone peptides and you're not exercising, you're putting yourself at risk. Or if you're just doing growth hormone or anabolics and you're not exercising, it's very dangerous. Or if you're not using time-restricted eating or fasting or, cycling on and off of these things properly, that's why you'll see in most of you when you get your prescriptions, we have you on it 5 days out of the week, 2 days off. So those are the two pathways, mTOR, AMPK. So growth hormone, think mTOR, which is actually really good. It's building, it's recovery. It's how you can actually start improving your joint health, your skin health, your immune health. And then you think MOTS-c, which is what cleans out the old debris that and flushes things, old cells, but it activates AMPK. So you have this secondary bypass where you can create ATP, adenosine triphosphate, which is the stored energy. You can generate more ATP when you activate AMPK. This is very sorry for all the acronyms, and if you guys want me to talk in normal language, just chat in the chat box. But I think you guys got this. So the other two pathways that you want to consider when it comes to muscle building are very exciting. And many of you may have heard of people doing gene therapy, the follistatin gene therapy. It's a great therapy, but it's just not completely vetted out, so I haven't done it yet, but I do want to. But instead of risking, gene therapy is dangerous because once you alter your gene, then you're going to get this prolonged expression. And remember, in our body, it's a feedback loop. Every time there's an input, you're going to have some type of adjustment that needs to be made. So if you push on the gas, your body has to follow what's called the law of entropy. So you just the laws of physics, there's nothing we can do about this, but one thing our bodies are always trying to do is have the least amount of energy utilization as possible. And so when you think about building muscle, you say, well, wouldn't muscles be great because it requires less energy when I'm doing the things I love doing? When I'm mountain biking, I want a lot of muscle. But your body is saying, well, if Regan's not using these muscles, if he's not using his quadriceps and his glutes to pedal, then that muscle is going to start to break down because it's not needed. It's an inefficient use of energy. And this is where these mTOR AMPK pathways come in, because mTOR is where you're pushing on the gas, but AMPK helps balance out with the brakes. It's like when you drink caffeine, you drink coffee, and you get this increase of dopamine, and you get a little epinephrine, and it stimulates your body, and your brain gets stimulated, and there's got to be brakes. And so then the adenosine receptors, the adenosine gets released to help make you tired. And so that's why if you drink too much caffeine, you can have a crash, especially if you're drinking too much, or if your adrenals aren't healthy. That's where L-theanine is great, because L-theanine, it lets the brain know that Regan's stimulant from the caffeine or from the coffee is okay. Regan's just in a flow state and he's fine. We don't need to downregulate things. And L-theanine helps to decrease the release of adenosine. So muscles, just like the brain, just like your heart, your parasympathetic, sympathetic nervous system, just like you go back and study Eastern philosophy, where the yin and yang, everything has equal and opposite reaction. That we go back to Newtonian physics. Yin yang is the law of contrast. It's like, if there's light, there's darkness. If there's the yin yang was originally the shady side of the mountain. The north slopes are where there's more trees, and then there's the barren side, which is usually the south facing slope. So it's interesting. We're the microcosm of the macrocosm. So the other two pathways, which I mentioned, MOTS-c influences both pathways, but the other one is a peptide, or is a pathway called the follistatin and myostatin. And follistatin, if you have nonstop follistatin, then you're going to just build too much muscle, and your organs will get enlarged, and it does not end well. And so, but you can push on the brakes with myostatin, and it's called myostatin inhibition. And that's where MOTS-c is a myostatin inhibitor, ACE-031, myostatin inhibitor. And these are really great peptides that you can balance out the equation. So you can use the growth hormone peptides with ACE-031, and you'll have this nice balance. You can add 5-amino-1-MQ or MOTS-c or SS31, and then that's the way that you can build muscle and also enjoy your longevity. And so okay, unmuted. I don't know. I hit the wrong button. So peptide number one, CJC1295 ipamorelin. This is a phenomenal peptide because it's 27 amino acids long. When you add ipamorelin with CJC, what the research shows is you have about a 7 times greater pulse of growth hormone. And the growth hormone and the metabolism of the peptides is anywhere from 7 to 30 minutes. So it's very short acting. Whereas if you inject yourself with growth hormone itself, it's a long-term communication network, and it can have more propensity for side effects. CJC 1295 does cause some flushing, and make sure that take it first thing in the morning or fasted before bed. But man, I enjoy taking CJC before a workout, because that flushing that lasts about 5 minutes, it feels similar to a niacin flush. You can use that as a nice little energy source, get you warmed up. Or if I'm doing the cold plunge before my workout, it's really nice because CJC just makes the cold plunge feel a little more tolerable. So it's been proven to decrease fat, it increases energy, better for muscle and sleep improvements. And ipamorelin, the other reason why you want to use ipamorelin in most of the growth hormone pathways is because it works on the ghrelin side of growth hormone. And when you're working on ghrelin, ghrelin can make you really hungry. And what ipamorelin does is it helps calm down that hunger so you don't have that same response that you did when you were a teenager, when you're just loaded with growth hormone. So the other peptide that's phenomenal as far as this mTOR activation is IGF-1 LR3. And LR3 is just long release formula. And so it does extend the half-life of the IGF-1, but IGF-1 is the growth hormone's workhorse. And it's what we can test in your blood, and it gives us a good understanding as far as how your levels of growth hormone are. But one of the things that IGF-1 does is it helps with liver function. And you'll find that people are a lot more insulin sensitive, helps balance blood sugar, really good for sleep. It is a somatostatin inhibitor as well. And so when you have high levels of somatostatin, so for growth hormones, somatostatin, that's the brakes. And so it's like you don't want growth hormone expressed all the time. So what IGF-1 does is it calms down somatostatin, puts on the brakes, and then growth hormone can get activated. What IGF-1 does for the brain, it helps in neural development. It helps with myelination, which is that sheath and that protective coating around your nerves. It helps clear out the amyloid beta plaques that can lead to all kinds of dementia and Alzheimer's. There's higher levels of these amyloid beta plaques. It's anti-inflammatory. From a heart perspective, it's great for cardiovascular development and protection. It's a vasodilator. On the muscles, IGF-1 is going to help your muscles develop. It's going to help them grow. It's also going to be the number one way that you can protect your joints. In the ovaries, it helps with folliculogenesis, so you're going to have healthier eggs. In the testicles, you'll see better integrity of the testicles, better functionality, better spermatogenesis, or formation of sperm. In the fetal development, IGF-1 is really important for fetal growth and differentiation. And one of our clients, she just gave birth a couple months ago, but we ran her labs about a month before the delivery just to make sure everything looked good. And her growth hormone levels were like crazy. They're so high, her IGF-1, and then her estrogen was through the roof, and progesterone. It was so fun to see. Testosterone, crazy. Just to see what hormones can do and how necessary hormones are for fetal growth and development. From a kidney perspective, IGF-1 is really good for glomerular development. So the glomerular fossa inside of your kidneys, that's the filtration systems. So think detoxification and managing the use of electrolytes in your blood. From an immune function department, it helps with your thymus gland. So as we age, our thymus gland gets smaller and smaller and involutes. But what growth hormone and IGF-1 levels do is they help develop your thymus gland. They help with hematopoiesis, so the formation of new blood cells. They help with immune cell function. So IGF-1 it's not just muscle, but remember, when you have really healthy muscle, it influences everything upstream. So now you built muscles. You got on the CJC, ipamorelin, IGF-1, which is still my favorite growth hormone stack, where you have all of those. It's so powerful, but BPC is going to be the accelerant for regeneration, and it's going to help you repair and recover from the damage that you inflicted on your muscles in whatever exercise you're doing in your building phase. So BPC, body protective complex, this peptide was discovered out of the university in Croatia, Zabig University. I'm probably mispronouncing it, but it was in the 90s is when this molecule, they were actually, the researchers were looking at what is a common thread between proteins that exist in the stomach that every cell in the human body depend on. And what they found is BPC 157 was necessary for every cell in the human body. And not only that, but they found that if they could increase BPC 157 in patients who had like Crohn's disease or colitis, they did so much better. And then they found that it helped with injury recovery with tendons. There's a study that they did on by severing the hepatic portal vein in these rats, and they found that BPC 157 helped with these angiogenic properties. So BPC is one of the workhorses for recovery. So this is that nitric oxide pathway. So it helps with vasodilation. It helps calm down the inflammatory response in the muscle. And this is really, if you're using just growth hormone releasing peptides and like some of the myostatin inhibitors like MOTS-c or ACE-031, well, you add in BPC, and that's where you're going to get the real benefits of recovery. ACE-031, I've been talking about this peptide. This is a podcast I was on speaking about it with Jay Campbell, and explained to him what the research showed. He's expert in peptides. He and his wife Monica come out to the clinic, and he's a wealth of knowledge. Fun guy, a little rambunctious to say the least. But ACE-031 is a peptide that in the studies, what they found is they took these postmenopausal women and they did a 60-day trial on ACE-031. They did weekly injections, and what they found, 5 milligrams, what they found is these women had and they measured the adiposity on their legs and the fat versus muscle ratios, and they found that these women were undergoing sarcopenia. They were having muscle get replaced with fat. And then what they found is just after this 60-day cycle of ACE-031, that these women had a 5% increase in lean muscle mass in their thighs, and they also had a 9% decrease in adipose tissue. So it made a big difference in their body composition in just a short period of time. And ACE-031, remember, that works as the myostatin inhibitor, so it puts on the brakes on myostatin, and then the gas pedal can go. So there's always this dynamic tension in the human body, and these pathways are really interesting because some pathways you just want to activate it, and that would be like using follistatin, the peptide follistatin. But if you use ACE-031, then you just put on the brakes with myostatin, so then the follistatin can get activated. And that seems to be a really powerful way. You can do it both sides. MOTS-c, we've talked about this one. But the other one that I love is when you add in thymosin beta-4 or TB500. Just so you guys know the difference, a lot of people ask, what's the difference between thymosin beta-4 and TB500? Because a lot of people use them uniformly, but they're actually different because TB500 is technically a fragment of thymosin beta-4, the full complex. And some people say TB500 works better than thymosin beta-4. I personally have found that both of them work in very similar fashions. I love the TB4 frag by Integrated Peptides, orally available, but I also love doing the injections of thymosin beta-4 with BPC 157. I just find that just puts me in the sweet spot for massive recovery. And if Cade was on, I would still tell him how devastating I was for 3 weeks when I was out of mine because he thought he took it from my house. So I told him to take a different peptide, but he took that blend. But I got my new ones in, so don't worry. 5-amino-1-MQ. Many of you have tried 5-amino-1-MQ. I get a lot of great feedback on this one because people feel lighter on their feet. They feel their balance is back. Your proprioception is increased. And this is an AMPK pathway. It was originally discovered out of the University of San Antonio, Texas, in 2016, 2017. And what they found is they were looking at this pathway called NNMT. And this is the pathway, when that pathway is active, our body just holds on to fat. And it's one of the major pathways that makes obesity very impossible to treat. And so they discovered that if they use 5-amino-1-MQ, it inhibited or it put on the brakes on that pathway. And then what it allowed the body to do is to go into more what's called lipolysis. So the body actually started burning fat very effectively, and it stopped the accumulation of more fat. So 5-amino-1-MQ is another great peptide that you can use in your muscle stack. So how do we stack peptides? Well, we've talked about it pretty extensively today, but we do like CJC, Ipamorelin, IGF-1 LR3, 5 days on, 2 days off. You'd use BPC 157 throughout, ideally adding in like TB4, and then maybe 8 to 12 weeks if that's the only pathway you'd want to go on. If you wanted to be really smart with this, then what you'd want to do is you'd also want to cycle in the ACE-031, the MOTS-c, and you do the CJC 1295 with Ipamorelin, IGF-1 LR3, BPC 157. You do that for about 60 days. And then you go to the ACE-031 with MOTS-c, and then we throw in like sarcopenia or hexarelin and 5-amino-1-MQ, and you do that for 60 days and then cycle back, and you feel great. So, make sure on the growth hormone peptides, they do compete. Insulin is not friendly to growth hormones. When you have high levels of insulin because maybe you ate a bunch of sugar or you just ate a big meal, then it just doesn't get to the receptors the way that you want the growth hormone releasing peptide to. So that's why we have you take it before bed, ideally 90 minutes after you've eaten, or first thing in the morning which is where I like to take it. And if you exercise in a fasted state, even if you eat a little bit and then you go exercise and then you take your growth hormone, it's really where you can get a nice pulse and a better recovery. And you can play with it. I actually find I do so great. I sleep really well if I can do the CJC, Ipamorelin, IGF-1 post-workout. It's great. So you can inject in your arm, your stomach, glutes, anywhere, and make sure when you get peptides, get it from a reputable source. You guys are in our healthcare community, so you guys know we source from only licensed compounding pharmacies. We work only with the best pharmacists, so that we know that what you're getting is not some kind of research grade or a lower quality peptide. Here's one of our clients, Zach, who got all ripped on some of these same protocols I shared with you. And he was showing off his big muscles there. And so your challenge this week is, what muscles do you want to build up? I know we got a lot of muscled up humans in here. And so I'm going to challenge you to do a body composition analysis and say, okay, what muscles would I love to develop a little more? And you can be as vain as you want. You remember Charles Euster, the retired dentist. He said, when someone asked him, why did you take up bodybuilding in your 80s? And he hired a Mr. Olympia and put on like 20 pounds of muscle naturally. And he said, well, there's some sexy 70-year-olds that I'm trying to turn their eye. And he said, vanity is actually one of the most important factors when it comes to longevity. And so your challenge is, okay, whatever muscles you want to develop, reach out to Nikki and the East West app. It should be right in your phone like it is in mine. Nikki spies on me all the time because my phone is connected to it. So it's your East West app, and it will show you. She can customize a protocol. If you want to build your chest, your arms, your legs, don't skip the legs. Fellas, I know you like the big, muscly arms and chest, but I can tell you the real longevity metrics is in the strength of your legs. Stronger your legs, the longer you're going to live, similar to grip strength. There's just massive amounts of data on that, and you'll be able to walk better. So what muscle group do you guys want to work out? Anyone have any areas they're working on currently, or things that they'd like to get a little different body composition around? And probably, I guess you probably don't want to share it in public. So I currently right now, I'm just about at the end of my VO2 max experiment. And so my goal is to get to 60. I'm at 55 right now. So I am getting closer, and I haven't tested since February. So I'm really curious to see how that goes. And then my next challenge on my next birthday, which is in just a few weeks, I'm working on sprinting, and I'm already kind of bringing in sprinting into my VO2 max. And so my next challenge is what I'm training for is to beat my high school record in my 40-yard dash. which was a 4.4, which not fast anymore, but at the time I was fast. And so, or excuse me, yes, 4.49. It was like um, it was really a big feat for me back in the day. So, and yes, Jane, it was. Thank you. I appreciate that. I do. I have been working hard on VO2 max, and I find that if you can have something you're training for, not just like, yes, you want to look good, that will be a small motivation. But if you're like, I really want to be able to, hike long distances, whatever it is, make sure that you make that happen. So, all right. Appreciate you guys. If there's no questions, we'll close up. And Bill said 4.49, faster than Larry Bird. I think Larry Bird was a genius. He didn't seem, he was a fast shooter. I mean, can you believe? Yeah, amazing. Todd, there we go. Are you still going to do the same number of pull-ups as your age? You know it, Todd. And I'm going to do my best to do them unbroken, but we're getting up there to the ceiling. So, Todd, how many pull-ups can you do with your legs straight? I think last time we spoke it was 16. And by the way, Todd, 20. That is amazing. Todd, do you want to plug in your age? Because you guys will not believe this. How many of you can do 20 pull-ups? Just pull-ups. Todd can do pull-ups with his legs straight. And he's 75 years old, and you meet Todd, and he doesn't look a day over 55. I mean, he's amazing. So, Todd, it's really good. I haven't talked to you in a while. I'm so glad to see you on here. How cool. Jane, appreciate you being on here. Love you guys. You guys are amazing. Bill, so good to have you here. Linda, always a pleasure. Jennifer, Kevin, Pam, good to have you on. Jan, I mean, there's so many of you. Gary, I'm so sorry if I missed anyone, but we'll call it a night. It's been so good having you here. We'll see you next week.